Hey guys, welcome back to the Triple Play. This is Danielle. This week we're going to be covering UT football. As always, we're going to be talking about Shy Tuttle committing, the game against Georgia, looking ahead to Florida this weekend, which will be a really big game. We're going to look around the SEC, look at the standings really quick. We'll also take a look at other conferences, the NFL, and some big MLB stuff this week with Derek Jeter retiring and breaking the hearts of all MLB fans everywhere, including mine. But first, we have a new special guest today, and I will let him introduce himself, so go right ahead.
Awesome, thank you. My name is Andrew Robinson. I'm from Knoxville, Tennessee, a freshman here at UT and a journalism electronic media major within the communications college, and super excited to be here and talk a little sports on a Monday.
Awesome. So, we'll go ahead and get started. So, Friday was a really, really big day for UT football. Shy Tuttle committed to the Vols. He made his commitment around 3 p.m., I believe it was. Big commit. He picked UT over North Carolina, NC State, and I believe Clemson was the other one. So very big commit, I should say, for the Vols. I wasn't really surprised that he picked UT. I saw it coming, but it still just made my heart warm seeing him put on that bucket hat. But it was fantastic. But looking ahead at the 2015 football commits, I should say, I think this pretty much rounds out the entire roster that we're going to have.
I mean, you look down the list, Cahill McKenzie, Andrew Butcher, guys like that. The defense is about to be one of the more powerful threats in the Southeastern Conference. It's almost unheard of since really Philip Fulmer in the mid-2000s, not even late in his career. Kiffin wasn't able to bring in the defensive talent. He got some offensive playmakers, but in the SEC, you cannot win without a powerful defense and an offensive line. But these recruits keep coming in, and there's some good offensive players in there too. But getting Shy Tuttle was a huge sign or commitment for the University of Tennessee. It can only go up from here with this recruiting class, and just keep bringing them in, Butch, because these guys can play.
Yeah, and it's really exciting looking at our national rank for this class. I mean, 5th place, that's unheard of for UT. It's been a long time since we've had that high of a recruiting class. I mean, it's nice to be put in the same breath as Alabama, Oregon, schools like that. SEC rank right now is still at 4. It's not too bad considering the conference we are in. That's pretty good for recruiting. But, I mean, like you said, Cahill McKenzie, Preston Williams, Shy Tuttle, those are our big guys right now. All 5 stars according to 247 Sports. So, I mean, that's really exciting. But, yeah, defense is going to be killer. And I saw something on Twitter right after the commit, and it was talking about how all running backs, or even just anybody on offense for that matter, in the conference should be scared when they see Shalil McTuttle running after them in the backfield. So, I mean, that gets me a little excited. So, it should be a lot of fun whenever we have these new guys come in. But, I mean, UT football in general is looking up. Commits are just a little added bonus. But going away from the commitments that we have still pouring in, we're going to go ahead and talk about the game against Georgia Saturday. You could say it was a heartbreaking loss, but I don't think it was as heartbreaking as last year since it was overtime. I know from a fan standpoint, it was great to see this close of a game against a team like Georgia. I mean, it's the 5th week of the season. You're playing number 12 in the nation. To keep it to 3 points, that's pretty spectacular.
Absolutely. The spread was 17.5 points. And earlier in the week, it was 21. They could bump that thing down to about 17.5, but still to keep it within 3, and really to never ever lose the game by a margin of 10 to 15 points. They got down at one point. What was it? 17 to 3? No, 17-10.
17-10.
Or whatever it was. Tennessee was down, and it was 21-10 because we led a drive at the end of the half to score to make it 21-17. And just looking at some of these numbers, Whaley had 264 through the air and 3 touchdowns, and he missed almost a full quarter of action. I still think if Whaley plays the whole game, Tennessee wins by 2 to 3 scores, 10 to 15, 17 points.
Definitely.
And in the third quarter, just something real quick, Tennessee had the ball 4 times in the third quarter. a punt on 5 plays, a punt on 3 plays, a fumble on 8 plays. That's when we had at the 20-yard line from the 36. And then a punt again on 5 plays. What's frustrating is when you look at those drives, they had a total of 21 yards in a punt, 4 yards in a punt, 36 yards in a fumble, 1 yard in a punt. And the worst part is Georgia in the third had an interception on the second play of the half. A punt, a punt, a punt, a punt. When you're getting the ball in great field position like that, from the 32, the 16, the 23, and the 47, you've got to be able to capitalize on some of those. Just score one time. And then, at the end of the day, you score one time, you win by 4, but it just wasn't meant to be. You know, the football gods continue to not let Tennessee win. It's frustrating, but it was definitely signs of hope. Another moral victory to add in the past couple of years, but they're getting close. They're getting close.
And a lot of fans have been, going off that moral victory statement. So many fans are saying that, this team doesn't need any more of them. But in my opinion, the more moral victories you have, the better this team's going to get. I mean, sure, not always great to have those kind of victories, but like I said, week 5 against number 12 in the nation, this was a great game. And, I mean, we had, our young guys really show up, especially on defense. Cam Sutton, marvelous.
Yeah.
But also, players like A.J. Johnson, who's always a monster. That's normal. Reeves Maven was fantastic as well. But on the offensive side, I was really surprised. I shouldn't say surprised because it's not really a surprise at this point, but Ethan Wolf is fantastic.
He is. He's a playmaker. That's for sure.
And it makes me happy seeing him wearing Jason Witten's number because he's wearing that proudly.
Yes,
he really does some justice for that number. But Jalen Hurd, also a big game. 1 touchdown, 119 yards with 24 rushing attempts. That's really good for him. Also, Josh Malone came up with 1 attempt for 20 yards. So not bad there. But overall, I would say, sure, it was a loss, but keeping it close. 25 first downs for Georgia as opposed to our 22, that's also a really big number. Yeah. First downs are huge with this team because I feel like those don't come easily.
No.
But especially with, our third down play is still a little up in the air. But overall, I think it was a very good game. And also with Whaley being injured, like you said, the outcome would have been so much more different, I think.
I completely agree. And just when Tennessee fans look at this game and, we should have won, we keep doing this, and you're going to have fans that are going to question whether Butch can coach and all this and that, and that's just Tennessee. But going into this season, what did you think of this team? Did you think this team was capable of winning the East? Because winning yesterday would have put this team in a very good position to maybe do that.
Exactly.
They would control their own destiny to an extent. And did Tennessee fans honestly think that was coming with this team, starting over 30 or playing over 30 true freshmen?
Right.
I just, baby steps with this team because they will be a force at some point.
Oh, yeah.
You can see it. In fact, at the game, I was there and talking to some Georgia fans. They were saying, we, at the end of the game, all the Tennessee fans stay with their heads in their hands. And one Georgia fan was like, you know what? That was the last time we're going to beat you, and we know it. That's the last time we will beat you for a pretty long time. And people are not missing this. They understand that Tennessee is here, and they're here to stay, and they're the future of this conference, and they showed it this past weekend, and they're going to continue to show it, hopefully, in the upcoming SEC slate.
Definitely, and speaking on to that point, we're going to go ahead and take a look at the SEC standings before we go into different games that happened. Right now, the SEC East is open to anybody at this point. It's ridiculous. Maybe not Vandy, but that's been typical in the past few years. But it's ridiculous. Missouri right now is at the top. They're 4-1 overall. Then you have Florida, South Carolina, Georgia, and then what breaks my heart is Kentucky is above us. It's been a long time since we've been able to say that. Kentucky, they've played games this season. They played Ohio, which was it wasn't even that big of a game, in my opinion. They played UT Martin, but the game that has stood out, they beat Vanderbilt, but okay, it was 17-7. But the fact that they came into an overtime game against Florida.
Yeah.
absolutely, I want to say spectacular for Kentucky, and that's not really a word that really goes along with that team at times. But it's incredible for them right now.
Yeah, you look at their schedule. Like you said, they beat UT Martin 59-14, Ohio 20-3, Vanderbilt 17-7. They lost to Florida in overtime 36-30. But a lot of me questions if Kentucky is as good as people think they are. I still don't think we've seen enough of Kentucky to say that. And how good is Florida is another question of mine. I'm not sold on them at all.
Right.
But still, Kentucky to be ahead of Tennessee, to be ahead of Vanderbilt, not to be the cellar dweller in football. The fact that you look at the game against Vanderbilt, you might have had 30,000 people. It's like no one even cares that this team might just be good enough to maybe upset South Carolina this weekend. But Kentucky showing signs of improvement for sure. You hear some analysts around the league, guys like Paul Feinbaum and some guys on ESPN. They do not think Kentucky will make a bowl game, just because after they play South Carolina, Louisiana Monroe, they got to play at LSU, at home against Mississippi State, at Missouri, Georgia, at Tennessee, at Louisville. I mean, that might be the hardest closing stretch in the East. And but still, a very good week for Kentucky football. No matter what the rest of the season has, they can say that they were ahead of Tennessee at one point.
Right.
And they're 1-0 or 1-1 in the Southeastern Conference. A long time since they've been 500. And good for the Wildcats. Maybe they can keep it going. Hopefully they can beat South Carolina.
Yeah, I think a lot of times, I know for me it's tough to root for Kentucky because my dad's a Kentucky fan. It's really tough during basketball, but luckily football is not much of a worry for me, but it could be this year. But definitely them beating South Carolina could be a game changer for us in the conference.
Yeah.
I feel like that could open up space for us a little bit more. But also looking at the West, Texas A&M is at the top right now, which that kind of surprises me in some ways, but I mean, they are really strong.
Yeah.
They're a really good team.
It's like they didn't have a drop off from Johnny Manziel. Kenny Hill just stepped in, and it was like unbelievable. Just watching this kid go, and he might be the next Johnny Manziel. He's super athletic and can throw it and run it, and he keeps moving that Texas A&M offense. Had a little scare this week though against Arkansas. But Arkansas 0-2, but gosh, how good is that team? I think they're pretty good. I don't know.
Definitely. Alabama had a bye week this week, so no big news with them. They're still 1-0 in the conference, 4-0 overall. Another team that had a bye week is Florida, so that could be really scary for us going into this weekend. They could have a lot of strength being built up right now. Anything's possible with Florida. Definitely aren't looking as strong as they usually do. They beat Eastern Michigan to open up the season, 65-0, complete blowout.
Yeah.
But like we mentioned, Kentucky, very close win for them, and then they also lost to Alabama. But it's tough to look at that game and really get any sort of ideas for what we could expect from Alabama and from Florida for this weekend, because that was such a sloppy game. It was one of the most pitiful games I've seen in a while for both teams. It was 42-21 for Alabama winning that one. But looking ahead to this weekend, I'm expecting us to see quite a bit from Jeff Driscoll. He already has 116 attempts for 636 yards with 5 touchdowns. That's crazy.
Yeah.
Rushing, still pretty strong. Their top rusher has 258 yards with 49 carries, and that's Matt Jones, who's a junior. So expect a big game from him, I would say. With our defense, it's kind of tough to really expect anything right now against Florida.
Yeah, and a thing that helps Florida, it helped us last week against Georgia. It's going to help Florida this week. It's a noon kick.
Yeah.
And it will still be, Neyland Stadium will be loud. It's Florida. And
sold out.
We've got a shot to beat them. And when we do, and no matter what time, it could be at 2 in the morning, and people will show up and sit in their seats and watch that game and be loud. But it is a noon kick. I think that helps Florida. The thing that scared me, if you're a Florida fan, from the Alabama game, like you said, you can't take much from it.
Right.
But Sims, the quarterback for Alabama, had 445 yards through the air. They gave up, I think, 650 yards of total offense to an Alabama team that is explosive and dominant. still 650 yards of offense is very startling. Will Muschamp going to have to get on that.
Mm-hmm.
But Florida's front seven can bring pressure, and that should haunt Tennessee because the weakened offensive line has shown again that it's going to be a long season for Whaley especially. He's going to get knocked down a lot.
Definitely. And looking back at the Georgia game really quick, there was a glimmer of hope at the very beginning of the game for the offensive line. I mean, they looked strong.
They did, yeah.
And Worley was he had so many looks out there from the receivers, and he was making those connections. Everything looked really solid, but then something just disconnected with the offensive line. So I'm hoping with this game, especially like you said with Florida's defense, I mean, they are killer. So it could be really tough, but I think overall it's going to be an interesting game no matter what. We'll go ahead and move to another big game that happened in the SEC, Mizzou and South Carolina. Absolutely spectacular. 21-20 win for Missouri, who's now 1-0 in the SEC, 4-1 overall. I know a lot of people expected this to be a big game, but to be as close as it was very surprising to me, especially with South Carolina being number 13 in the nation. You kind of expected them to kind of come out, take control, and just never let go of it. But Mizzou they took control, especially in the fourth quarter, scoring 14 points. I mean, that's insane.
And that's just so uncharacteristic of a Steve Spurrier team to lose a game in the fourth quarter. Usually South Carolina's either fighting back or they're pulling away or holding on. Very rarely do Steve Spurrier teams have the mental lack that this one does. This team, to me, it's going to win some games in this league. They've already lost to Texas A&M. They beat Georgia at home. And then they lost to Missouri and beat Vanderbilt. Struggled against East Carolina, but that's regardless. That's besides the point. They got a shot to beat Auburn. They can beat Clemson. They can beat Florida. They can beat Tennessee. They can beat Kentucky, or they can lose to every single team. And this is such a up in the air team. They're so hit or miss week to week. South Carolina is a team that to me is very interesting. And Missouri, by winning that game, really controls its own destiny with Georgia to take the East. And that Missouri-Georgia game will be interesting. But back to this game, just good for Missouri to go into Columbia. That's a tough place to win with the roosters crowing every play and the towels twirling, whatever they do up there. But Missouri, they look awful good. They had that bad week against Indiana. But a good win for them this week for sure to get them 1-0 in the conference, top of the East standings, and that's all you can ask for if you're Missouri.
Definitely, and usually at this time it's way too early to talk about Heisman's, but last week we brought up Marcus Mariota, who, I mean, when is he not going to be in the run for the Heisman? But I think Russell Hansbrough really brought himself out this game, especially. We could see a lot from him. He scored 3 touchdowns in this game. He could be a contender for it. I mean, like I said, it's still really early, but that's an SEC player to look out for, of course. Like, we still have Gurley to look out for, too. But I think it would be refreshing to see it from a team like Mizzou, who you don't really hear, like, big playmakers like that out of. So that'll be really exciting. For South Carolina, Dylan Thompson was spectacular. 219 yards, 21 for 37 in attempts with 1 touchdown. Not too bad. Like I said, good yardage, though. But, and Maddie Mock kind of struggled a bit. 12 for 34 for 132 yards, no touchdowns, but no interceptions there either, so that's not too bad. But this game overall was just really exciting, very odd, like you said, for Spurrier. I expected much more out of his team, but this is the SEC, and you can't really expect much. It's always changing. We're going to go ahead and take a look out of the SEC and just go all around the NCAA. One game that really stood out, again, was Florida State's game against NC State. I did not expect NC State to come out like they did. And especially Florida State still won, yes, but they are not looking as strong as they should be. Yeah,
not at all. Even with Jameis Winston, they struggled against Clemson, but they got the win, and you think to yourself, all right, this team will get it together. And then NC State jumps out. At the end of the first quarter, they're up 24-7. And you're thinking to yourself, there is no way that Florida State is going to let this happen. Now, they ended up coming back and winning 56-41. But what's so odd about this Florida State team is they give up so many points, and they give up yardage and third downs, and just watching them, they're always discombobulated on the field. It's not like this team is not like last year's team,
No.
to say the least. And they're 4-0 and 2-0 in the ACC, so you got to keep them number one. And I don't know if they're going to be tested throughout this regular season. It's really interesting.
Yeah.
Maybe Notre Dame. That'll be a very interesting game on October 18th when Notre Dame comes to Tallahassee. But a win over NC State, it is a conference game, and no matter what conference you're in, going on the road is tough.
Yeah.
They pulled it out, so they won by 15. So you got to think, all right, well, maybe they got it together. They figured it out. We'll find out against Syracuse, because Syracuse is not very good. That's in 2 weeks. They'll beat Wake Forest at home. I'm almost positive. Just to give them another road test before that Notre Dame game. I think that's a trap game for Florida State, because they got Notre Dame and then at Louisville back-to-back weeks. So we'll see what happens there, but very interesting this past week with NC State. Florida State just never been a huge Seminole fan.
Yeah. And also, I think something that's interesting to look at is the scoring breakdown within the quarters. NC State, like you mentioned, they were leading 24-7 at the end of the first. But then you look at Florida State for the rest of the game. Second quarter, they put up 14 points. Third quarter, 21 points. Fourth quarter, another 14 points. That is incredible to put up that many numbers in each quarter. But I'm going to give a lot of credit to NC State on this game. I did not expect them to come out the way they did. It was great to see a team like that really coming out, showing their stuff, and I hope that they do end up being a big team for the ACC.
Yeah, I completely agree.
Another piece of news that happened this weekend that kind of took me by surprise, but it was just because of the past that this coach has had. Charlie Weiss is out from Kansas. He's only won one conference game since going there, and that's pitiful. But then if you think about his times that he had with Notre Dame, I mean, I was focused on that, thinking, oh, he was so good there. But going into a conference and only winning one game, there's no surprise on why he's gone.
No, you look at his overall record. He was 6-22 at the helm at Kansas, and it just, you got to feel bad for Charlie. He's really got nothing going for him right now. He's out at Kansas, and I doubt anyone's going to want to give him another shot at head coaching. I think he might become a coordinator. He kind of reminds me of an NFL type coordinator.
Yeah, definitely.
But it is kind of interesting. A mid-season fire from Kansas, and Kansas reminds me a lot of Kentucky at the Big 12. You never hear anything coming from football, maybe occasionally. They had it a couple years ago, kind of like Kentucky's doing now. They're more of a basketball school. But to fire a coach mid-season in a Power 5 conference, you just don't hear that very often. And we'll see how they react, how that team reacts. They can win a game this season. I don't know. That's not a very good Kansas team, and to lose your head coach, no matter if you like him or not, it's difficult. So we'll have to wait and see on Kansas. Yeah.
We're going to go ahead and move to the NFL real quick. The Titans have been the Titans. They're 1-3 on the season right now. They lost to the Colts yesterday, 41-17. Not much of a surprise considering who you're going against with that Indianapolis Colts team. You just look at Andrew Luck. 29 for 41, 393 yards, and 4 touchdowns. He's the most consistent quarterback I've seen in a long time, but he's so much fun to watch. But I don't get what's not clicking with this Titans team.
I've been a Titans fan for years, and I just can't figure out how they just can't get better. They sign guys in free agency. The drafting strategy is always up in the air. It's like Al in Oakland. What was his name?
Oh, I know who you're talking about.
Anyway, the old Raiders owner that is no longer living, rest in peace. But he drafted a punter in the first round. Yeah. The Titans they can't get anything going. It's happened for years. They got hammered by the Bengals, drilled by the Cowboys, and then absolutely obliterated by the Colts. Somehow they were able to win in Kansas City week 1.
Still not sure of that one.
Don't understand that a lick. But they got Cleveland this week in
Could be
Nashville.
Interesting.
Maybe you see Manziel for Cleveland a little bit. I don't know. The Titans are the Titans, like you said. They They're 1-3. They're pretty much already out of postseason contention. 2 games behind the Colts and a game behind the Texans. Still ahead of the Jaguars. At least you're not Jacksonville, but
Right.
you're still the Titans, and you got a lot of work to do. I was skeptical at first. I don't know about you, about Ken Wisenheim. I thought that was a very lateral coaching move from Mike Munchak, but we'll see if he can get the job done. They have playmakers in Tennessee. Can they play? They haven't yet.
Right.
I don't know.
Looking around to other games in the NFL, one surprise was the Cowboys beating the Saints. The Saints have not been hot this season, which is also a shock. But the fact that they just pretty much annihilated the Saints, 38-17. Romo, I never thought I would see this from him. 22 for 29 with attempts, 262 yards, and 3 touchdowns. Yes, I said 3 touchdowns. Completely insane. Drew Brees also had a fairly okay game, 32 for 44 with 340 yards and 2 TDs. Not too bad for him. I expected more out of that Saints team and not that much out of the Cowboys, to be quite honest.
No, the Cowboys are the running joke of the NFL, and they've been that way for 3 or 4 years now. The 8-8 Cowboys never making the playoffs, always coming short. And now you start to wonder, they're 3-1. Is this year that the Cowboys maybe get it done? I mean, that win over the Saints was a big win in my mind. On Sunday Night Football, you've got the whole U.S. watching. You're America's team. You're in Jerry World, and you get the win over New Orleans. Their only loss is to the 49ers, and the 49ers are a heck of a team. So I'm buying this Dallas Cowboys team. I thought that I'm very skeptical on the Saints. 1-3 now on the season, and they're playing in a very tough division with the Panthers and the Falcons. Man, I'm very sold on this Cowboys team for this year. I think that they've got good enough pieces in a division that is still struggling. The Giants are still the Giants, even though they got a big win over the Redskins this weekend. The Redskins are the Redskins, and the Eagles will give them a run, I believe. But Dallas is a good team, and from now on, if they start beating people, I don't know if we can call it a surprise anymore this year. But I agree, this New Orleans win caught me off guard, especially Romo.
Definitely.
Big game for him.
Looking at other scores from the league, Packers beat the Bears 38-17. Always a nice rivalry to see. I wanted the Bears to keep it a little bit closer, but still a really good game there. Ravens beat the Panthers 38-10, which is a little funny in my opinion. Steve Smith now being on the Ravens, going against his old team in the Panthers. I'm sure Cam Newton is really missing him out on the field. Also, the Lions beat the Jets 24-17. Jets aren't connecting either, but maybe in a few years we'll get something else out of them like we did a few years back. Dolphins beat the Raiders 38-14. Chargers beat the Jaguars 33-14. That was an interesting game. Jaguars are still 0-4. Maybe they'll win a game at some point. Vikings against the Falcons. Vikings won 41-28. That's a big win for them. And then I'd rather not talk about it, but Steelers-Buccaneers game was weird. Steelers they looked strong for the most part. They were really struggling at the beginning of the game. Towards the end, I mean, it looked like we had it in the bag. And then the Buccaneers come back and win 27-24 with one of the worst ending plays I've ever seen in my entire life.
It truly was horrendous.
A triple lateral back to Ben Roethlisberger. I mean, you already tried one trick play in the game and it didn't work out. Almost did. Antonio Brown was all over that ball, but just couldn't get the balance right. But to lose to the Buccaneers, and fun fact, it was their first ever win in Pittsburgh.
Oh wow!
Which it breaks my heart. But it was a tough game. Ben Roethlisberger went 29 for 40 with 314 yards. Still 3 touchdowns, but the playmaker, in my opinion, would be Antonio Brown. Yeah. Absolutely incredible this year. If you have him on your fantasy team, you are lucky. I'm not one of those, unfortunately.
Me neither.
It's kind of sad, but big game for him. But just for Tampa Bay, I'll give them credit. Great game on their part. I mean, their passing game was incredible. Glennon had 302 yards with 2 touchdowns, going 21 for 42 with his completions. So not a bad game there for the Buccaneers, but it's going to be an interesting season for the NFL, I would say, looking at this week and all of the weird wins. guess you could say.
I don't think I've ever seen a year where so many teams are 1-3 and 2-2,
Mm-hmm.
and so many power teams. The Colts are 2-2, the Packers are 2-2, the Bears are 2-2, Ravens 2-2, the Steelers are 2-2, the Jets are 1-3. Go down the list, and then you got teams like the Chargers are 3-1.
Yeah.
The Eagles are 3-1. The 49ers are 2-2. Cowboys are 3-1. And we'll see what the Patriots have in store tonight when they go at it. But yeah, a very odd year in the NFL so far, and I think the NFL needed something new to talk about after such a horrendous media start to their preseason and then season. Now you get back to football and things are just weird. It's like nothing changed, but we're back on football. That's good. Yeah, what an odd week in the NFL.
Definitely. And to wrap up the show, we're going to talk about the MLB. Derek Jeter has made a new accomplishment in my baseball career. I've cried more this week thanks to him than I've ever cried. I've never cried about baseball. Well, unless the Pirates make the playoffs, which they did last year and this year, but we'll get to that. But Derek Jeter, what a career. What a guy. Just everything about him. What an ending. His final game at Yankee Stadium, he wins the game in extras. Bottom of the ninth. I'm sorry. I'm thinking to another game I witnessed this weekend there were so many different extra inning games, but definitely big with him. Walk off to win the game in your final game at Yankee Stadium. Absolutely beautiful. And then his game yesterday, final at bat against the Red Sox, which I think was very fitting. He got a single with an RBI on there and then just said, I'm done. He was also playing DH. He decided to not play shortstop in the series against Boston, which I think was a good move.
I agree.
Because you can't end it there. You have to end it at home. But overall, great ending for him. It's going to be different not having the captain in baseball and those pinstripes anymore. It'll be heartbreaking once next season comes around.
Yeah, and no matter who you are in baseball, Derek Jeter is just he is the epitome of a class act and a role model. And we were talking about it before the show, just everything that guy did was so instrumental in how baseball moved forward. He really made his team, his Yankees clubs, even though they weren't that good they were at some points, but during the PED big scandal, the Yankees weren't totally dominant. And he managed to steal the spotlight with the Yankees away from that and keep it on baseball and keep baseball from imploding within itself. If I'm Major League Baseball, he deserves a big bear hug from every single person involved in baseball, from the players to the fans. And you saw that as his final season. He went every road trip. They had something for him. They did it in Atlanta with Chipper Jones on a lesser scale, but still a Hall of Famer. But man, Derek Jeter, you pretty much said it all. He's a class act. It's going to be weird seeing him.
Definitely.
Not seeing him out there. But I doubt he leaves baseball. I feel like he'll stay with the Yankees, maybe a front office position. But man, you got to love him, and he's going to be missed. That's for sure.
It's definitely going to be heartbreaking. Well, it is heartbreaking the fact that they didn't make it into the playoffs. I was really hoping it would just be a complete fairy tale, that it would come down to Game 7 in the World Series, and he would just hit like a grand slam to just end it and be like, I'm done. But of course, we're not going to get that. But speaking of playoffs, the beautiful time starts tomorrow, and it's going to be so great. Tuesday, we will see Oakland take on Kansas City for the AL wildcard game. That'll be really exciting. Wednesday, we have San Francisco against my Pittsburgh Pirates, and I'm very excited to say we're back in it again for the second year in a row. That 21-year drought was horrible. That'll be an interesting game, but looking at divisional games, I mean, St. Louis is in, no surprise. They clinched yesterday with Pirates losing to the Reds 4-1. In Cincinnati, that was a tough loss for Pirates fans, but if you look at the playoff scenarios we have right now, it's going to be incredible. Just the very beginning is going to be a lot of fun.
It's going to be so... Each series, and you get to your division series, and it's a best of 5. I think maybe one series might not go 5 games. I mean, these series, it's a perfect scenario for Major League Baseball because, in my opinion, with how weird the NFL is and college football this season being, I feel like it continues to get more popular, especially with the rise of the SEC network and things of that nature.
Definitely.
Baseball could have slid under the rug, and I think that they've just by chance they've got a awesome postseason lined up, and I will be watching all these series. They're phenomenal. I think that San Francisco-Pittsburgh National League wildcard game is going to be the most incredible game. That thing might go into 17 innings. I don't know. I think both teams are deserving of going on. And
Right.
that's so hard. Like the AL wildcard, Oakland, they've slid into the playoffs. They're, in my opinion, they don't really deserve to be there, but they're there. I think Kansas City will win. That wild card game's gonna be so fun. I know you're looking forward to it.
Yeah, I'm excited. Like I said, I've mentioned multiple times before, I'm a Pirates fan. This is beautiful for the city. I mean, it's always just been like hockey and football. It's just Penguins and Penguins and Steelers everywhere. So to have the Pirates back in it, very exciting. But overall, I mean, I'm even excited to see how the Orioles play. They've been tremendous.
Yeah.
I truly feel that we could possibly see them in the World Series. They've just been incredible. If we were picking teams now to be in the World Series, I feel like it's still really tough. It's all so open. I feel like most people would say that the Cardinals will be in it. They could be. They're always in contention for it. But maybe we could see Orioles in there, like I said. I don't know. It's all so up in the air.
It's crazy. It's gonna be so fun. The Washington Nationals, after they clinched, they continued to win.
Definitely.
And just yesterday, Zimmerman, their pitcher, threw a no-hitter. I mean,
incredible.
Going into the playoffs. The Washington Nationals, I don't know if they will be good enough to beat a team in 5 games like Pittsburgh or San Francisco.
Right.
Just because I don't trust Washington that much. They're still really young to me. But man, what a playoffs. If I had to pick my 2 World Series, I don't know about you, I would pick. You have to pick the Cardinals.
Yeah.
And even though they played the Dodgers in the first series, you go with the Cardinals. And gosh, out of the AL,
I would say the Angels.
Yeah.
That's just me.
Yeah, I'm either going the Angels or Baltimore. And to say Baltimore in the World Series, you get a couple eyebrows raised, but I don't know. I kind of like the Orioles. I like Buck Showalter.
Definitely.
I like what they're doing over there. But as a National League guy, as a Braves fan, just dismal season. Finished 17 games out of first place.
Right.
79-83, tied with the Mets in the division. Regardless, watching the NL is going to be so much fun because you play all these teams so much. It's going to be interesting. I can't wait.
Definitely. Well, we will see how this will play out within the next week. I mean, there's a lot of games coming up, so MLB, thank you for bringing back the postseason. It's been missed. That's all for our show this week. We'll see you next week.